Good evening, everyone. So we're going to walk you through the village's proposed budget for this upcoming fiscal year. So first, it's important to know that creating the budget is not something that happens just once a year. It's an ongoing process that begins as soon after May 1st kicks in. Throughout the year, department leaders are identifying service needs, planning projects, responding to changes in the community, and at the same time, our finance team is closely looking at revenues to make sure that the village remains financially stable. The proposed budget was first presented to the village board on March 24th, and then a public notice was published in the Daily Southtown on March 30th for tonight's public hearing. And it's been available at the village hall and on the village website for review. And then following tonight's hearing, the final budget will be brought back to the board for approval on the April 28th board meeting. So the proposed fiscal year 26-27 budget begins on May 1st. Overall, we are reflecting a stable and positive financial position. As we move into the new fiscal year, the village's focus remains on maintaining services, managing rising costs, and planning for long-term infrastructure needs. Local governments use something called fund accounting. This simply means we separate money into different categories or funds to make sure it's used properly and transparently. The village has 6 main fund categories. So overall, our total proposed budget is over $57 million, which is about a 15% increase over the prior year's budget. We'll go into a little bit more detail on the first 3 fund types that you see on the screen there, but for now we just want to highlight a couple of the other funds, the smaller ones. So the TIF, or tax increment financing funds, are increasing by about $1.75 million. And this is mainly due to some planned improvements that we have in the downtown area. These projects include adding more lighting in the both metro parking lots, and designing and building new crosswalks to improve safety and accessibility in the downtown area. A significant portion of the budget process focuses on the general fund, which is the village's main operating fund. This is the fund that supports the everyday services our residents rely on, which include police and fire protection, public works, and our general government operations. For the upcoming year, general fund revenues are projected to be just over $30 million, with expenses at a similar level. Both are about a 9% increase over the prior year's budget. When the draft budget was first presented to the board, we were estimating a surplus of about $175,000. Since then, staff has continued to review and refine these numbers to make sure the budget is as accurate and useful as possible. So based on those updates, the projected surplus is now approximately $118,000 as of tonight's public hearing. This decrease in the projected surplus is mostly due to a few updates made since that draft budget. So it includes salaries and benefits that have increased by about $36,000 due to union negotiations that may impact wages, as well as a correction to an overestimate that we found was in our original draft. These increases are partially offset, though, by a slight decrease in our health insurance renewal, which came in lower than expected once we received the final figures at the end of March. There's also been some updates to contractual services. One new item included in the budget is a potential contract for garbage cleanup throughout the village. This would cover a 3-month period, and we'll bring that contract to the board for consideration later on in the month. In addition, the village's cost for dispatch services has increased as the village recently received our updated cost for the year. So that was formerly ECOM, now it's Southland Communications Center. And these increases are also offset by some adjustments on the revenue side of the general fund. So let's talk about general fund revenues. About 76% of the general fund revenue comes from taxes. Sales tax is the village's largest source of revenue at about $7 million. Gaming revenue is related to the new Wind Creek Casino. So now that we've had a full year of operations under our belt, we've been better able to budget this revenue source going forward. And then we have property taxes, which is actually seeing a decrease within what's kept within the general fund. And that's mostly because more of those funds are being directed to the police and fire pension funds. And then last year, in October, the village board approved a 1% local non-home rule sales tax. This is expected to generate about $3.5 million annually and will be used primarily for capital projects or debt service payments. The village actually received its first month payment for this tax from the state this year, and we received about $284,000. So our estimates at this point in time is pretty right on. On the expenditure side, the general fund supports the day-to-day services that keep the village going, keep the village operating. The largest portion goes to public safety, followed by public works. And these are the services that our residents see and rely on every day, such as emergency response, snow removal, and keeping our streets in good condition. The largest cost drivers in the budget are salaries and health insurance, which together make up about 61% of the general fund expenses, which is roughly $18 million. Health insurance costs in particular have increased significantly in recent years, which is consistent with what we're seeing trending across the country. Overall, the budget continues to feel the impact of rising costs across many areas, especially in risk management expenses over the past 6 years. During that time, the village's annual insurance contribution has more than doubled from about $600,000 to approximately $1.4 million today. To help address these growing costs, this budget includes funding a new position focused on risk management, along with expanded safety initiatives aimed at strengthening the village's overall safety culture and reducing long-term costs. So overall, the village's general fund budget reflects a balanced and forward-looking financial plan. We've been fortunate to have some new revenue sources that are generating additional funding for the general fund, the most significant being the casino gaming tax. This new revenue has helped offset some declines in other revenue sources, but at the same time, these funds have been needed to help address ongoing increasing costs, which include personnel and other rising operating costs. Next up, we have the Water and Sewer Fund. This fund works a little bit differently. It operates more like a business. It's funded by water bills, not taxes. The goal is for the water bill revenue to cover the cost of providing water and sewer fund services. So as a reminder, the village has been discussing this fund throughout the last year as we had the water rate study completed. Based on that study, the village board had approved water rate increases for the calendar years 2026 and 2027. And those increases are intended to help fund the lead service line replacement project that kicks off this year. Staff will be reviewing the water rates again in the fall of 27 and returning with recommendations for potential changes effective in 2028. So at this time, the Water and Sewer Capital Fund is projected to have about $3.6 million available for capital projects. And so while the approved rate increases support the lead service line replacement program, we will need to be looking at additional funding options for other upcoming projects, which include water main improvements and the replacement of our central water tower. And finally, we have the village's general capital fund, which is used for projects like infrastructure improvements. There's about $7.5 million available between the remaining 2024 bond proceeds and general capital funds that were made available due to a transfer of unassigned reserves in the general fund over the last several years. This budget has over 25 projects planned totaling $7.3 million. There are 3 major projects that make up the majority of this budget. And I'm going to have Public Works Director Josh Burman come up to kind of talk briefly about the 3 highlighted projects we have here.
Good evening. Good evening. So the geothermal projects, quick update on that. We are working with Kluber. We're expecting some early plans for tomorrow that we're going to have about 2 weeks to kind of review, chop up internally with staff. And on the 26th, we're going to come back all together, chop it up again, and then be able to bring to the board a presentation on that next step direction. That's one of the geothermal is one of our big projects due to the potential development going on out in back here. There's some things that need to button up. Kluber is looped in on all of that. They know the schedule and what we have to meet and stay within the lines, right? So we have more that's going to be coming back on that. Vehicles, we have some small leftover items from last year that we weren't able to get through with what was funded. So we have some small things. We have two new snow plows that we're expecting. That's going to be a priority of our of staff's because of the emissions standards that are changing this coming year. Cost is going to go up drastically with that. So our hope is that with the approval of this, we can get 2 chassis ordered ASAP and then start that build out process. And from there, then we'll pick on the little other small odds and ends. Patrol car, new CSO van, the second CSO van, excuse me, and then just small public works items like pickup trucks, work trucks. The Ridge Road storm sewer is a hot one for us. with the last storm from the last weekend and the storms we're expecting tonight, we're trying to prioritize this efficiently. There's still some things that are outlined. Plans are ready. We worked with Christopher Burke Engineering on that, but we still have to coordinate some efforts with IDOT on their portion they're contributing to, which is the section of Ridge Road in red there to Loomis. So with the $1.2 million, everything right now is still tentative. We're trying our best to schedule it efficiently while still highlighting those areas that are bubbled out in green with backyard flooding that has gotten to the point where it's touching people's homes, going in garages. We know the severity of it, and we're trying to prioritize that efficiently.
Thank you. So overall, the village remains in a strong financial position. As we move forward, we're going to continue to focus on managing our risk management related expenses and identifying long-term capital plan with identified funding sources. That's all I have. If we have any questions from the board or from the audience?
Okay, thank you. Very nice presentation, very understandable. Any comments or questions from anyone in the audience with regard to the budget? If not, board comments. Trustee Harris.
Amy, as always, thank you for your presentation.
Trustee
Thank you very much.
Trustee Harris.
Well done. I'm also just really glad that we're going to be addressing some of the flooding issues in the neighborhood of Ridge Road.
Trustee Simpson.
Thank you for your presentation.
Trustee Mason.
Great job, Amy. You and your team always doing an excellent job. Josh, we appreciate your input and the entire team as well. But like Jay said, I'm really happy that those residents are going to be addressed. There are quite a few of those that are problematic. So great job, you guys. Thank you.
Trustee Burman.
Yeah, thank you. I do have a question about that Ridge Road project. Will that alleviate all of the flooding in the backyards, or just like completely alleviate it? It will, or do they need to add additional drainage in their yard?
Based on the modeling that we ran, the section that was in red there that goes down Loomis, we're gonna be picking up as much as possible. It doesn't show any lines going to that backyard, but with some surveying and working with some residents there to get access agreements, a utility easement, we're gonna be able to run maybe a 12-inch pipe, maybe a little bit larger or smaller based on the modeling to catch up that pooling or ponding. I was explaining to some residents last weekend that we're always gonna have issues like this in backyards because they were designed at the end of the day as retention. They hold water and then they go down. So anytime we can put a pipe in, even no matter what size it is, it's gonna help alleviate that water faster.
Do we still have that program where we pay for, how does that work? We pay for material, they pay for labor?
So we have what's called the 50-50 share program. Any resident that's interested, that's having issues in their backyard, they can reach out to Public Works, ask for me or our engineers. We'll get their address, we'll set a time up to see what's going on, and then we'll design a plan. We'll come up with it, we'll create the plan, we'll look at all the material that's needed, and if the resident chooses that they want to move forward with it, there is responsibility for the resident paying for a contractor to install it. If we get the green light that they want to do that, we will then purchase all the material, drop it off, and it gets installed.
Okay, that's great. And does the current budget still include the 50-50 sewer line collapse program?
It does.
Okay.
It does. We're still working with Chicago Heights. Apparently Chicago Heights has abandoned their program, which we were trying to model after because of some legal issues, but we're still pushing through.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. With that, may I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Second?
Been moved by trustee